Basil. Basil had not the slightest idea why he visited the Cathedral for the Grateful of all places. In truth, he did not believe in the archangels of the realm's religion, but here he was before an altar of one of them anyway. Tome presided over the Third Age and turned archangel after her death as an archspawn. During her life, she struggled with the decision to save or condemn the humans whose fate she controlled. As a result, she was given the title the Conflicted and was an unpopular choice for people to worship. Generally, the populace favored angels who acted unquestionably holy. Tome's shrine was not decorated with cut flowers, but littered with shriveled petals. Her stained glass window portrayed her defining moment. The massive arcing image depicted her saving a human with one hand while abandoning another in her other. Above the human she saved was a shining portrait of the first archangel, Asiel, and looming over the human she deserted was a dark depiction of the first archdemon, Lao. Basil enjoyed Tome's story more than the archspawn of the other ages. Of the first four, she lacked the pure hearts of Asiel and Leilila, but she did not entertain a cruel one like Mlau. However, the people of the Third Age wanted reassurance that an angel would definitely save them once they died. Those in the ongoing 13th Age had a similar mindset, and it explained why her shrine rarely had company. Basil looked at the eyes of her statue. For a moment, he could have sworn they blinked at him, but it was an absurd notion. I could whisper a prayer, but even with her blessings, I doubt Tome could prevent the rumors about me from spreading through Sithica. Still, I'm getting my long-desired wish to travel fulfilled, and I could pronounce gratitude for that. He stared at the exquisite limestone sculpture, hoping to catch another glimpse of movement. His master must have known all about the artist and the information concerning the statue's creation, but Basil hadn't bothered to ask. If the sculptor was a mage, perhaps they had enchanted the stone to move on occasion. Basil cleared his mind to meditate in front of the altar. It was a common practice for those who followed angelism, and several others meditated in front of Asiel's and Leilila's shrines. I love having a clear mind. It feels healthy. The peaceful quiet the soul finds when content and alone. I suppose that's the best I can do, spiritually. Besides, there's plenty I do believe. Magic for starters. Just because I practice healing magic daily, I consider it a practice of faith no less. Same with my defensive tomes. Weather, combative, and transportation magic also seem plausible and likely. I don't know about dark magic and the other illicit specialties. Basil realized he had not cleared his mind, but rather filled it with unnecessary thoughts. As he was about to try again, his master beckoned. Basil, what are you doing here? Watercress stared beyond him towards the altar of the conflicted archangel. What, are ghosts wandering the altars? Basil asked. It would not have been the first time his master leveraged the help of phantoms to search for him upon his becoming lost. Watercress's expression flickered oddly. I'm surprised by your choice of archangel. I did not realize you preferred Tome. Come, now. We require preparations for tomorrow. Also, I have news from Low King Citrine to share with you. Have you said goodbye to your parents? Basil followed his master and replied, I found my father in the mines. I told him to tell my mother for me. I didn't want to venture inside the manor again. I am sorry that you were unable to say farewell to her. It was my choice. I'll have to come back later. Of course. You'll see her again. Watercress led Basil to the renowned jeweler's shop. Petey conducted business in the wealthy portion of the market, conveniently close to the Cathedral for the Grateful. They only had to pass the transportation mage's post. By the lack of murmuring, Basil assumed there hadn't been any recent developments. As Basil and his master approached the sole shop with glass windows, Five swept the floors inside. Confusion twisted Basil's stomach. Why is Five in Petey's shop? Basil, what are you doing here? Five greeted after Basil and his master entered. While Basil spoke with his friend at the store's front, Watercress conducted his business. 18 and I were traded for a necklace. Basil narrowed his eyes. Zalafin! Five nodded. A distraught expression spread over his face. Basil clutched his fingers together so tightly he could have broken them. How could she? His fury lit his voice. We were all friends. How could she do this to you both? Five glanced at his new owner, Petey, before calming Basil down quietly. Hey, it sometimes happens, you know? It could be worse. I'm a little excited. Petey's going to put me in one of his artisan workshops. I'll learn how to sculpt the gems. And I'm glad I'll get to travel with 18, even if we are to be separated. What's going to happen to him? Where is he? Basil hadn't noticed his friend's absence through his rage. When Basil looked around the shop, brightly lit with superfluous mirrored lanterns surrounding each display, Watercress exchanged currency with Petey for use in the other kingdoms. He's hauling crates in the back. He's going to be sent to the mines in Coserai, but when you're that big, what else would anyone have you do? Besides, it'll be good for him to travel the countryside. He'll get some fresh air for a change. While Basil was still irate, sorrow took over the fury. When will you go? A slave trader named Precision is supposed to take us with him tomorrow, along with the crusade. At that, Basil's mood shifted again. I am to go on the journey as well. That's great. We'll see you on the road. Five smiled and stuck out his forearm. Basil nodded and clasped his arm. I shall return to my master's side, but yes, I will see you then. And I need to be getting back to sweeping. Can't be slacking off. When Basil caught up with his master at the back of the store, Watercress collected cuts of gems of nearly every sort. There were peridots for Ikasu, emeralds for Wojet, and diamonds for Coserai. Their cuts ranged from the cheapest shard to the most expensive cabochon. Additionally, there were metal coin currencies for Gia, Devor, and Bavati. His master's sizable fortune would prepare them well for their journey. Petey eyed Watercress's impressive pile of gemstones, but conducted the exchange respectfully otherwise. The longer Basil waited, the longer he resented Petey for accepting his friends as a form of payment. He didn't want to cause trouble for 5 or 18, but he wanted to do something. Frustrated and bitter, he maintained his silence until his master concluded the transaction. On his return, Basil couldn't stop brooding over Zelophan's betrayal. She's the one I'm upset with, not Petey. At least 5 and 18 will be familiar faces on the journey. Then again, anyone from Sithica would be familiar. Perhaps a better word is friendly. Disrupting his thoughts, Watercress said, We will return home, and upon arriving, I will explain King Citrine's plan. I apologize for keeping you waiting. I hope it hasn't been weighing on your mind too heavily. Basil shrugged. He hadn't considered the proposal since his master first mentioned it. However, given his master's hushed tone, his curiosity grew. Once they returned to the security of the healer's office, Watercress packed up their newly acquired supplies. Basil's stare bore into his master's back while Watercress withheld the sensitive information from him. When Basil pressed the matter, Watercress requested a few ghosts to allow them privacy, established a sound barrier, and described the journey to visit the Oracle Lemniscate. How does King Citrine expect me to do this? Basil asked with terror edging his voice. I would be useless in this task. How would I provide for myself? You will have unknown companions who will protect you. Besides, I have taught you much about the kingdoms. You could make this journey alone if you were to become separated. Have more confidence in yourself, Basil. The apprentice dropped his gaze to the floor self-consciously. Of course, master. You will have our best maps in your supplies, so you'll have quick access to them if you need to run off. Make sure to give them a thorough look ahead of time to familiarize yourself with them, Watercress said. Also, come try on this coat. I want to ensure it fits you. Basil had neither owned nor needed a coat before. He took the heavy white fur from his master's trembling hands. Basil didn't understand why his master would be shaking. His master hadn't been assigned to commit treason by splitting off from the crusade and collecting a secret prophecy. Shoving the idea aside, he slipped his new coat over his brown tunic. The sleeves are too long and it hangs down to my knees. It's going to make it hard to walk. Thank you, master, Basil said. I'm sure this was expensive. Temperatures outside Master Sirius's barrier could kill you within a mere turn of the suns. I packed a pair of gloves, boots, and a face covering with your supplies as well. You'll have convenient access when you require them. His master passed Basil a traveling pack, presumably with the aforementioned supplies within it. There's one more safeguard I want you to have. Always keep this on your person. Let no one know you have it. Withdrawing the thinnest 3-sided knife Basil had ever seen, Watercress presented it to him. This is to be concealed at all times. It may serve you well in an emergency. Basil gaped at the blade. His master had never taught Basil anything regarding matters of the sword all his life. Watercress had even been reluctant to teach him to shave. His master sheathed the knife and handed it to Basil. As the cool metal hilt slid into his palm, Basil shuddered. Cautiously, Basil fingered the small holy stone set in the pommel. He felt as though he finally understood his master's apprehension. Are we going to die? Watercress grinned reassuringly. Ideally not, but we must be as prepared as possible for the probable and improbable alike. His master opened a high cabinet and retrieved his own short curved blade with an aged handle and its traditional sheath. In preparation, he strung it onto his belt next to his Tyon Patrick gem pouch. Basil had no such carrying device, so he resolved to conceal the thin blade in his arm's sleeve the following morning. Basil glanced around the shop, searching for additional items to take on their journey. How are we to carry the herbs and potions? We will store them in an oxen cart dedicated to carrying the supplies of the crown's hires. We'll have to secure them properly and seal anything that could be damaged by the elements. Chances are, we'll treat most of our future patients downwind of an oxen's behind, so the stench should remind you of home. A huff escaped Basil, but he appreciated his master's attempt at a joke. In the low candlelight, everything seemed so much more daunting than in the full light of the suns. Trepidation seized his lungs, making them feel like taut, pressurized sacks, and even though he was dreadfully happy to receive the chance to explore the borders beyond Sithika, he could not help but wonder if he would see the White City gleaming in the light of day again. Once Watercress plucked the office's hanging plants clean of leaves and flowers, and once the two of them had completed the remaining preparations, Basil returned to one of the many books that his master owned, a dull work on foreign architecture. However, it would be his last chance to read it until the end of the trip. They would not bring any of Watercress's books with them for fear of damage. Books were far too valuable to risk. Basil could purchase his own office for the price of a stack of them. His master gestured to the book in Basil's hands. Do you intend to read tonight? We will have an exhausting trip tomorrow. It would be best to retire early. My nerves would prevent me from sleeping. Basil turned the next parchment page. His master shrugged. Blow out the candles when you're done. As Watercress turned and changed into his nightclothes, Basil studied the line of 11 intricate tattoos cascading down his spine. When Basil first asked about their significance, his master had told him that each signified a different guild he had belonged to at the Mages' College. Basil returned his attention to his book and stared at the page. I will. He reread the same sentence about one castle's slanted tower structure no fewer than 4 times before he realized he wouldn't read another word. He returned the book to its proper position on the bookshelf, snuggled in between spell tomes, historical manuscripts, and research dissertations from the Mages' College. He blew out all candles but one. A smoky, acrid stench circulated the small post as he breathed onto the last light. It danced under his respiration. The blue core swirled from side to side, and the halo of yellow moved with it. Basil loved fire. Whenever he stared into a flame long enough, it seemed to smile at him. For a moment, he held his hand above the yellow sphere. Soon it became so uncomfortably hot he had to remove it. This is heat, and ice is cold, but as weather conditions, what would cold feel like? Would it be as unbearable as keeping a hand near a flame or holding a chunk of ice? He extinguished the diminutive flame. In the darkness, his eyes were blind. Taking advantage of the effect and forsaking his hammock, Basil curled up in his reading chair to sleep. The next morning, Basil awoke to a hand on his shoulder. It's time to go, his master whispered. Basil tensed his shoulders and took in a heavy breath before he understood his bearings. He rummaged around the shop for any last items he wished to take. He grabbed an extra quill and some parchment and shoved them into his pants pocket. They might prove useful to have on hand, even though his master had already packed some in with the herbs and potions. Basil glanced around the shop. There was nothing left to bring with them, yet Basil felt as though he was leaving something behind. He had grown up in the office, yet his desire to explore and his duty to serve outmatched his hesitation to go. Basil, help me carry these trays to the oxen cart. They're too heavy for me to lug to the meet-up point on my own. Watercress huffed. Of course, master. Basil grabbed a few of the top trays. Thank you. Watercress rolled his shoulders to resolve his aches. Let us go then. Without the candlelight, Basil realized how early it was, and a psychological wave of exhaustion passed over his mind. Despite his weariness, he shuffled out of the room behind his master and avoided knocking the trays into anything. With the supplies on his back and the healing supplies in his arms, he exited the little old shop. Contrary to the office's dark interior, the albino city shone under the last light of the third moon. Shadows lingered in the creases between stones, and many of their neighbors' homes appeared backlit. A single stretched cloud remaining from the night's storm trickled toward the heavens, fleeing the weather mage's expanding barrier. However, the thin veil hardly dissuaded the luminance of the buildings beneath. Before the first sun rose, dozens roamed the streets. It was an unusual and exciting sensation to see everyone so out of place. There was comfort in knowing that they prepared for the same journey as he did. Come, Basil. We will group with the soldier escort at the entrance to the merchant road. Watercress locked the office with his gangly fingers. A defensive mage's enchantment upon the office's key would secure the building until either of them returned. Strained heat gathered in Basil's arms from the heavy trays, but he would not drop the vital supplies. Occasionally, Basil had to readjust his grip, but he arrived at the mouth of the merchant road without incident. Along the road, lines of soldiers adorned bronze or gold armor suits, from their helmets to their boots. Most had their helmet's face shield raised, but some kept them lowered. Each wore colored ribbons and numbers on their chest plates, but Basil did not know what they signified. In addition to the soldiers, random citizens mulled about in the remaining free spaces. One of the wanderers guided them to the oxen carts. The oxen were burly and foreign to the kingdom of Vetron. Their powerful muscles would do well pulling excessive weight long distances, but it would make the march sluggish. "This cart is the one to house the stores of the crown's hires," one of the oxen drivers announced. It should have been obvious. His cart was the only one with various packings, while the rest filled with the standard military-grade camping equipment and arms. A heavy-set older man, whose strength probably rivaled that of his beasts, introduced. "I'm Boss New, and these are my 2 beastlings. We're pleased to make your acquaintance." "I am the healing mage, Master Watercress of Fonston, and this is my apprentice, Basil of Sithica. I take it you are not originally from any of the 13 kingdoms." Boss New loaded his cart with their trays. "I was born on the northern border of Voget. My parents assigned my name liberally." With the burden removed, Basil rubbed his arm before letting them both dangle. "Have you ever met the Oracle Lemniscate?" His master eyed him pointedly. "I know Watercress wishes for me to be discreet, but wouldn't it be more peculiar for me to not ask the question when I typically would?" "I can't say that I have. Why do you ask?" the cart puller inquired in return. "Just interested. I've never been up there before, but I hear that the Oracle resides in Voget." "Indeed it does. I've never personally visited the creature, but I know many who have. They say you cannot see its flesh, for it is completely sealed in bandages. When it speaks, noise passes from a hole in the cloth, but there is no tongue to form words, nor eyes to see your face. It will give you your future, and it is never wrong. However, oracle seekers often misinterpret their prophecies. You have to be clever enough to sift through the oracle's metaphors and riddles if you wish to understand the message." Basil smiled at the tale. He knew that Boss New had indulged him, but he appreciated the dramatics of it. He always loved a good story. A middle-aged blacksmith named Billet approached. "Is this the cart that I can keep my anvil in?" "Yes, it is," Boss New said. When he moved to help load the blacksmith's supplies into the cart, Billet waved a hand to tell him he could manage on his own. As burly as Boss New looked, Billet was even stronger, with lean, thick muscles bulging against his long tunic and trousers. "So, Basil, you'll be coming with us too, then?" Billet lifted bars of solid metal into the cart a few at a time. The wood groaned as he neared the end of loading his supply. "I am," Basil said, pleased to be saying so. "Good. With both you and your master in attendance, I'm confident this group will make it safely across the kingdoms." Billet excused himself to collect his grindstone from a shop. "I'm glad to hear the healing mages are respected here. I can't tell you how many botched healing jobs I've suffered through from partially trained herbalists." Boss New laughed. Watercress nodded and ushered Basil away to discover more information about when they should expect to leave and where they should be when they did. The master led his apprentice to the front lines of the armored soldiers to find the leader of the expedition, the Major General of Vetron, Sir Naval. Sir Naval, otherwise referred to his military rank of D4, was a broad-shouldered man. He wore the standard golden armor of an officer knight with his helmet's visor raised. It struck Basil that the man had the most peculiar turquoise eyes. Typically, Basil might not have taken notice, but they were difficult to miss. Like the other soldiers, D4 had colored ribbons on his chest, but unlike most others, he had 6 of them rather than the standard 2 or 3. "Watercress, you will be marching in the front with us," D4 announced when the master appeared before him and the other highest-ranking soldiers of King Citrine's army. "Your apprentice will take the back. Both of your first duties are to the soldiers and then to those under contract to the crown. Others receive last priority of your healing skills. Beyond that, heal higher-ranking soldiers before the lower ones. If there is an attack falling on us, then do your best to not get killed. Run, hide, fight, lie, whatever you need to do." "Great, yes, I'll try to survive with a knife I don't know how to use." Soldiers ushered the master in a position near the front, but not on the first line. Before Basil lost track of him, Watercress called, "Find me when we break for food or rest." Basil agreed, but felt lost. "I'm supposed to march behind the soldiers' lines, but where precisely?" The Major General barked at him to go to the back again. Swiftly, Basil responded to the order. He rushed past lines of hundreds of bronze and gold medal suits. The rest of the king's contracted hires remained behind the last line of soldiers, and Basil would join Billet if he could find him. If not, he would seek out someone else he knew from the city. He wished to march with 5 and 18, but he didn't know if their escort would approve, and Basil didn't want to cause them trouble. When Basil passed the last line of soldiers clad in bronze plating, a massive gathering of unorganized people lingered behind them. In addition to the contracted hires, a dozen traveling merchants joined their parade along with a few families. Would it be wise for the other civilians to come? They would have the protection of an army, but this still might be a perilous journey. Hey, you're the healing mage, right? A soldier with a nasally voice asked. Yes, Basil turned to face the soldier ahead of him, stationed on the back line. The soldier's raised bronze visor revealed his square face. I'm Teleost, rank T6, the boy introduced. His sunken cheeks and bugging eyes did nothing to help his appearance. He had 2 ribbons on his armor's chest plate, one the color of lobelia petals and the other of ash, but Basil was ignorant about their significance. The number 6 stamped in black under the ribbons made sense. I remember you. I'm Basil. He approached the last line of soldiers. Teleos was a few rotations older than Basil. When they were younger, Basil had attended to him a few times for mending broken bones. Basil was surprised he had gone into the military, given his frail build. The soldiers on either side of Teleost investigated who approached behind them. The taller, stockier one to Teleost's left had his visor raised, while the slimmer one on the right kept it down. All 3 soldiers had the same colored ribbons. Only the stamped numbers varied. The left soldier, whose face was visible, commented, Whew, I thought they'd forgotten about us back here. I'm Brucite, rank T74. Brucite's straight black sideburns poked out of his helmet, flanking thick eyebrows, soot-colored hooded eyes, and a long straight nose. Between the 3 of them, Brucite was certainly the oldest, probably having at least a couple rotations on Teleost. Brucite nodded to Basil in greeting. What's nobility doing in the back line? Teleost asked bluntly. A condescending sneer grew along Teleost's thin upper lip to reveal poorly managed teeth. I'm 17th born of my lord father. I'm not exactly well positioned, Brucite said. And I did poorly on the military academy's written examination. How could you not do well? I scored perfectly on the written section. It wasn't hard, Teleos said. Brucite grimaced, pulled his eyebrows together in disbelief, and shot a questioning look to Basil. Basil shrugged. Brucite countered, What's someone who scored perfectly on the written exam doing on the back line, then? They need someone they can trust to protect the rear. All the best fighters can't be in the front. They'll put all the famous and competent knights up there. For us brilliant yet unknown fighters, we'll protect the army from anywhere. Teleost puffed out his chest proudly. You sure do talk a lot, Brucite said. Teleos postured deflated, and he turned away from Brucite to the soldier on his other side. The last soldier in the back line had refrained from engaging in the conversation. Who are you? What's your name? T15, Teleost asked after checking the number stamped onto the soldier's breastplate. The soldier faced forward rather than answering. The 3 young men looked to each other confused. Your ego is bigger than your body. What's your rate? Brucite asked Teleost. Management and administration. Brucite laughed heartily. No wonder you're on the back lines. You're a supply boy. What's yours then? Nobility fighter, but again, I can see that I didn't do well on the written exam. Teleos seemed bitter, but didn't respond. As though to switch to a lighter topic of conversation, Brucite asked, Basil, have you attended the Mages College yet? Is he going to ridicule me like Xalaphin would once I tell him? Not yet. I expect I will when we finish the crusade. Brucite's interest sounded genuine. What sorts of magic would you study? Master Watercress is regarded throughout Vetron as being skilled in many disciplines. Yes, my master is impressively skilled. He's taught me pieces of what he knows, and I enjoy general healing magic. I will probably continue my study of botany, but I might be interested in picking up some combative magic if I could find a few spell tomes. If I had a drop of magic in my blood, I would study combative magic. I love sword fighting, but it would be excellent to extend my range with some fireballs or ice spikes. Brucite extended his arm, pretending to shoot elemental magic from his palm. I would love to learn anything of fighting at all, Basil said. Watercress didn't teach you? Teleost asked. The veiled silent soldier tilted his head in their direction, as if he found that bit of their conversation interesting, but he briskly turned forward without acknowledging them further. No, not combative magic at least. I believe he knows how to fence, but he never passed on the art. He taught me many other trades, though. Basil disliked talking about himself so much with the new company. Where's your family from, Versailles? The Wichu region. It's on the northwestern coast of Etron. My father is Lord Gothite. Our main residence is in Fonston. Basil registered Fonston as the city his master was originally from. Thus Basil supposed he ought not be surprised Brucite had heard of Watercress's reputation. Brucite continued, It was convenient, because I didn't have to travel far to attend the military academy here in Sithica. So Teleost, what's your story? If you can't tell by my name, my family are fishermen. We mostly fished from the lake below Sithica. Sometimes we would venture to the coast to find species other than lotus and koi fish, but it was infrequent. We didn't particularly want to deal with the sea folk if we could help it. But I didn't want that to be my life. I want more for myself than my parents have. I figure I can do that in the military. I'll rise up the ranks until I have a prominent position. It's good to have a plan, Basil said. Will it make you happy? I don't care if it will or not. I'm sick of having such a glum life outlook. If the work doesn't make me happy, then at least the status of the position and the pay will. Between the two occupations, I'd rather be in the military. You wouldn't consider any other trade? Basil asked. I'm too old to be taken on as an apprentice. I could teach you something, Basil offered. I doubt that you could teach me anything of value, Teleos said. Unless you become Citrane's low healing mage, I'll end up having a higher social standing than you. Basil was about to offer evidence of different subject matters he had learned, but Brucite cut him off. Don't be rude, Teleos. Also, show more respect for our low king. I thought you were on a first-name basis with him. Teleos quieted, and so did Brucite and Basil. Basil deliberated if he should abandon the soldiers to seek out Billet, as he originally intended, when a horn blew loudly across the gathering, and the soldiers at the front started moving. Everyone shuffled forward until they could establish a proper stride. The road bottlenecked so that only 3 people could fit across without being buffeted by brambles. While the formation had accounted for this limitation when establishing the rows of soldiers, the spacing between them required adjustment. While they trekked down the merchant road out of Sithica, Basil noticed the purple leaves that his master always enjoyed. Basil was eager to see green leaves, regardless of how abundant they were in the rest of the realm. A pocket-sized butterfly basilisk perched in a tree's ashen branches, watching the crowd with intelligent lilac eyes. When they locked onto Basil, the creature jolted deeper into the foliage. Basil tried to spot the nimble reptile again, but it left his thoughts when they passed from the area. Shortly before the group was to exit the Weather Mage's protective barrier, Brucite said, You might want to put on a coat if you have it. We're getting close to the edge. Teleost answered, We're wearing weather-enchanted armor. Obviously, I don't need to put on a coat. I was speaking to Basil. Basil unstuffed his coat from his pack and adorned it. The furs were heavier than they had felt on his back, and its bulky size made it awkward to put on while walking. Once securely on, he pulled the gloves and boots out too. Again, he struggled to switch out his shoes while maintaining their pace. After embarrassing himself in front of his new acquaintances, Basil said, Thank you for the warning. Brucite nodded. Now that only 3 of them fit along the road, Basil treaded behind Brucite, Teleost, and the silent T-15. Have you dealt with the lands outside of a Weather Mage's barrier before? Brucite asked to lighten the conversation again. Yes, I've already said that I've been to the coast. Teleost seemed insulted. I haven't. I'm excited, though. Optimism shone through Basil. In anticipation, he recalled all the places he anticipated visiting. Frozen tundra, flat deserts, deep marshes, jagged mountains, misty highlands, forested glades, and open glens. Perhaps he would see the sky cities of Wojet, or the dragon residing in the kingdom of Ferdin. Excited? Do you like the bitter cold? Brucite asked. Basil considered the one ice tome he had known. I've never experienced it, but I enjoy playing with the ice that I make myself, for a short while at least. Brucite grimaced. I suppose you'll find out in a moment. Basil shifted his attention to the road ahead. The change in scenery was so dramatic that it appeared synthetic. The ashen bark of the heliotrope forest died away at the same edge as the fallen purple leaves littering the dirt path. It was blindingly white beyond the line of trees. The striking spot could have been the portal to the Blessed Lands or another dimension. Mysterious cold had an image attached to it. At that moment, it was the most wonderful sight in the entire world. With each step toward the spectacle, the path stretched before Basil, making the wait nearly agonizing because of the manufactured anticipation, long fostered by his dream for exploration. This white was nothing like the city they left behind. There were no imperfections. The resplendence dazzled in splendor across the azure horizon, untouched by vegetation or human-made structure. The edge of the weather barrier ended with a puddle and a line of kicked snow. Basil counted the steps. Just before crossing outside of Master Sirius's magical protection, adrenaline overwhelmed Basil. When Basil crossed through the slush, ecstasy pulsated through his body. He was acutely aware of his trembling hands and tense leg muscles. His eyes opened wider than they should have, and his mouth pulled into an inexplicably taut grin. Even after trying to relax his face, he couldn't. His heightened spirit physically impaired him, and no other experience had ever been comparable. Not when he had saved a life, not when he had visited his mother alone for the first time, and not even when he had fallen in love with a silly girl. This was the greatest moment, unparalleled and unrivaled in his limited set of memories. His foot crushed into a fresh patch of snow, untouched by the soldiers who had plodded ahead of him. It was a gentle sinking, so soft as if his foot slowly leaned into an embrace with the unfamiliar nature he had so desperately wished to meet. This step officially symbolized the long-awaited beginning of his adventure. Looking ahead, he saw the sky unlike he had ever seen it before. It was clear of leaves and limestone structures. It stretched open along the horizon. It was massive and it was free. He felt he could see the entire expanse of the world in this single sight. Even though he knew it wasn't true, his eyes could have fooled him. Ironically, there was a sort of magic to the barrier-lacking landscape. At first, the change shocked his nerves. With the fading of the fantasized vision, cold crept into his skin. After Basil's romanticized notions left him, he understood how severe the freezing weather was. A wind blew across the hills and slapped snow across Basil's exposed face. Despite his winter boots, slurry soaked his toes. His arms tensed and shivered vigorously, and his back curled over to direct whatever heat he had left toward his core. He wrapped his hands in front of himself, breathing warmth onto them, but the temporary relief dissipated immediately. It was unbearable, and Basil regretted ever leaving his master's office. "This is miserable," Teleost whined, and Basil had nothing to argue.